What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are and whatever time it is, and welcome back to yet another video with you, man, Emergaholic. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 6 of my Carthaginian campaign for the divided into Impera overhaul mod for Total War Rome 2. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we really get into the full swing of the second Punic War. While officially we never got official peace with Rome, we did have a lapse of about 30 or so turns of peace between our two peoples while the southern Italians fought them. Now that has changed with Xanthippus, the exiled Spartan general, leading the liberation of Greece. He'll continue to do so in this episode, and we'll also open up a second theater of war against the Romans in Iberia. But for now, we have an interesting political development. Back in Africa, we have the Ptolemies break off all diplomatic relations with us. Why does this happen? Who knows, but they've just decided to do it. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. They have a lot of enemies, but they have chosen to do it regardless. And so we will now begin to perhaps solidify our eastern border a little bit more, and perhaps consider expansion into the east, as most of Africa is under our direct or indirect control regardless. So the Ptolemies are definitely causing issues, and we'll have to respond appropriately. However, before we continue, I want to spend the next little while going over an overview of where we have placed all of our dynasties and families. We have done a massive reorganization of our armies, and so we're going to go through all of them right now and list them all. So, in the far west over here, in all of these cities I'm circling, basically in the far western Maghreb, southern Iberia, the Balearic Islands and such, we have the Barcid dynasty. The Barcids are led by Hannibal. This is, again, let me reiterate, the grandfather of the Hannibal. He is here in the city of Mastia, leading the Barcid personal guard. He is going to be a city governor, and he is going to stay inside the city of Mastia, or whatever capital is, whatever city we choose to be the capital of the Barcid realm. We then have the Third Republican Fleet, led by Eshubenaza. I'm sure I nailed that pronunciation. He's a pretty new general though, and he'll be leading our fleet for now. And then we of course have Hamilcar's army, a solid core of veteran Italians combined with some Iberian mercenaries and other Italian allies such as the Samnites and African elephants. It is a deadly army. Obviously, the Barcids will be given free rein to expand out in any of these directions into Iberia, and all of the Barcid forces will be staying in Iberia for the time being, so as to get back on track with each dynasty having different areas to control. Meanwhile, back in the center of the map, we have Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia. These islands are now once again firmly under Magonid control, with Syracuse being the capital of the Magonids. Here we have the Magonid personal guard, led by Macinthe. You might remember him as one of our admirals for one of our best fleets, actually. He did fantastic as an admiral. Now he is the leader of the Magonid political party, and as such, he will be a governor in Syracuse itself. We then have the Second Republican Fleet. This is led by Bartos. Bartos is yet again another younger general. No real experience besides being a city governor for a few years. So hopefully he can live up to the task that Macinthe has designated him with in protecting Sicilian waters. And then we have the First Magonid Army. This is led by a general called Pericus. Pericus is, again, another young man. He spent the majority of his early career as a city governor in North Africa, especially in the new Garamantian province that was conquered. He is also using a mixture of units, Italians, Greeks, Libyan Phoenicians, Libyans, and he also has Libyan Thurios infantry. So we have hit the Thurios reform, so we're going to start to see even more units added to our military rosters. But as we continue doing this, you'll see a pretty big pattern of soldiers being from the areas that these dynasties have control in, and you'll also be noting that we have younger generals coming in. This is almost about 100 turns into the campaign, guys. We've been playing this campaign for a while now, so we are having more younger men step up to the plate and lead their families. And as you can see, we're also going to be trying to use these islands as a defensive operation When needed, we can push back into Italy, possibly take out southern Italy and push towards Rome and Asculum, but we're not trying to rush getting back into Italy just yet. We pushed into Italy before we liberated the southern Italians, and they failed completely, so it's time to reevaluate how we take on the Romans. Now, in the Far East, we have the final major family, at least, of the Carthaginian political, culture or society, and that is, of course, the Hannanids. The Hannanids control the majority of Central North Africa, and they also have their capital in the city of Cyrene. They have the Hannanid Personal Guard, led by Gisco himself. He is the leader of the Hannanid family. He will be, again, a city governor inside the city of Cyrene. That's what all of the heads of all of these families will be doing from now on. And then we have the Hannanid First Army, led by a brand new general known as Hampsicora. Hampsicora was also a city governor. He was the city governor of Cyrene for a very long time, basically ever since we conquered it. So he has a lot of experience, but not too much military. But then we have a very experienced general, and he's now an admiral, and that is Hanno. He will be leading the 4th Republican Fleet. You will note all of our forces in Cyrene and what was previously known as Cyrenaica are all brand new. Some of the generals have experience, don't get me wrong, but they will be in charge of dealing with the Egyptians in the east and the Nasamones to the south. But those troops those generals will take quite a while to recruit their troops in order to deal with this new Egyptian threat. The Egyptians haven't declared war on us just yet, but they aren't far away from it. So hopefully the Hannanids can build up their forces quickly and prepare to defend against the Egyptian encroachment that will surely come upon our lands. However, we then come to the final major Carthaginian-esque party. Now, this isn't a family party by any means, but this is the Senate. The Senate is currently led by a man known as Himilcar. Himilcar, not Hamilcar. He's a little bit older, in his early 40s now. He has also spent the majority of his entire career, really, as a city governor. He was the city governor of the far western Maghreb province that we had under our control. He's now been transferred back to Carthage itself, so he can help lead the Carthaginian Senate in trying to keep the realm together while allowing all of these different political families free reign in their different quadrants and provinces. Now, the actual final major player that has entered the Carthaginian political system is, of course, Xanthippus. Xanthippus is leading the Liberators of Greece army, and while he isn't Carthaginian and may not even end up sticking around very long in our political scene, he is at least a major threat politically to all of the other Carthaginian families. Currently, he only has direct control of Sparta. Nothing else is under his influence just yet, but that may change, especially as he will begin pushing towards Athens, Larissa, and more in this episode and in future episodes if he survives. However, his orders at the moment are to not push past Macedon. Macedon will be the border that Xanthippus is being assigned, and essentially he will be granted all of Greece under his control as long as he remains loyal to Carthage, of course, in payment for leading the troops, the Carthaginian troops, against the Romans. He also does have a major Roman legion nearby, the 10th Minervia Legion. It's a pretty solid legion, although it still doesn't really have too many veteran troops, but it has a good amount of cavalry, so it could be a pretty big problem for Xanthippus. And the 10th Legion is actually going to go ahead and march directly towards Xanthippus. He also has his Spartan garrison that will be coming in to try and help him hold off against this Roman counterattack. Let's get on the battlefield, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are on the battlefield, everybody. We have Xanthippus leading his army in a column formation. Yet again, you'll notice that he's done this a few times. It's to keep his troops in close proximity to one another while he sends forward scouts. And here are our Numidian scouts, You can see the 10th Legion marching directly up the hill. Very steep hill that you'll see here when we zoom out momentarily. They have a very long way to march towards us, so hopefully Xanthippus can get in a good position before they arrive. But we can see there is also some cavalry in the far distance on their wings. Behind Xanthippus' army, though, we have the garrison of Sparta, the city of Sparta itself. It's definitely not very big, and their troops are quite depleted since we only just recently liberated the settlement, but they will come in to be helpful at some point. Xanthippus begins the battle, of course, by marching forward his column in battle-ready order very, very quickly. In a forced march style, they need to hurry up and get in position before the Romans can get all the way up the hill. So you're going to see here I'm highlighting an area where the army is being told to go. Once they arrive there, they will form up in a single line of hoplites, essentially, and they will expect to receive the Romans directly from the front. We'll be positioning our army at an angle, but because we'll be in the open, the Romans should be willing to give battle. Our Numidians will hopefully be able to pull out the Roman cavalry and make them chase them and take some losses while doing so. The Romans actually begin chasing our Numidians pretty early on in the battle as well. They have a lot of different cav units. I think they had 5 in total, whereas we only had 2, so quite lacking. Xanthippus is definitely not a cavalry commander, although he's an excellent general overall. You can see the path that our Numidians will roughly follow. They'll be running alongside the Roman cavalry units that are coming out of the brush now. You can see our javelins are being thrown in against them. And while our Numidians don't really have any armor at all, the fact that they can throw their javelins so far, do it pretty accurately, and get out of the way of the Romans, means that they're going to get a lot of kills for very little cost early on in this engagement. Meanwhile, while our Numidians are holding off the Romans, we have our troops set up in a defensive formation. On the left-hand side, we have Iberian swordsmen. This is followed up by mercenary Greek hoplites over here in the center. The swordsmen are in a position where they can either outflank the enemy or come behind and help us out. We then also have some more Libyan Phoenician hoplites in the center. And they will also be followed by Xanthippus himself, he'll be leading a Carthaginian sacred band unit, in addition to another sacred band unit being close to him, just behind on standby. Xanthippus is on the right hand side of the army in a position of honor for the Greeks, and then on the far right hand side we have more swordsmen ready. Here's Xanthippus himself, sword in hand, in his right hand, shield in the left hand, of course, a symbol of Sparta right there. He's ready to go. He's in formation with the rest of his men, leading from the front as a Spartan should. We then begin the main battle with the velites of the Romans marching forward. They are going up a very steep hill, so they'll be extremely exhausted, not as accurate as normal, but they are well trained, and so we can't underestimate them. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, though, we have the Roman cavalry still chasing down our Numidians. They get very, very close, and they get a couple charges on some units that got caught off guard. But overall, our Numidians are going to be getting a lot of kills very easily. We also have the Spartan garrison up here that will be trying to rush forward to help out our cavalry deal with the Roman cav, because despite our Numidians doing well and drawing them away, they still have more cavalry units. For example, this one unit down here I've highlighted is charging against our swordsmen on our left-hand flank, which is definitely not what we want to see. This is against our Iberian Scutarii as well. This isn't just any random Iberian unit, so they're going to kind of be wasted there against the cavalry, although they will hold them down. After the velites are pushed back by our Balearic slingers, the Roman legionnaires, aka their Hastadian principes, begin charging up the hill towards our main front line. They'll engage shortly. The cavalry engagement, though, goes very much in our favor. The garrison of Sparta is just coming up on the cavalry right now, and they have a few javelin units that will also be able to get some free kills. The Romans are splitting up in both directions, trying to retreat as quickly as possible. But while they were doing that, the main line of the 10th has charged in and engaged our liberators of Greece. The hoplite wall is holding steady, though, against the new gladius and scutum of the Roman units. They have hit their Polybian reform, so they are using a main line of swordsmen from now on, although they still do have the triarii in the rear. to be sent in case of desperate emergencies. But you can see the fighting is pretty savage, although our hoplites are way more disciplined. They're holding in formation and they're not getting caught out really. We also have our Iberians in front of some of our hoplite units to try and screen them a little bit, help protect them a bit more, because our hoplites are a little bit more valuable to the army. Harder to train, more well equipped, and if we lose them, they're harder to replace. But overall, our hoplites are doing good. You see them push down the hill in unison right there. We're going to have multiple units, especially in that center, push forward together. And as they're pushing, they're going to be getting even more kills and fighting a little bit more aggressively. So that's really, really good for us. Although we do start to see some enemy triarii get involved in the center. And they also had Italian elite hoplite allies getting involved. However, now that the enemy cavalry has been dealt with, we are swinging forward on the left and right hand flank. The left hand flank over here has our Iberian swordsmen coming in to rear charge against the Italians. But before the Iberians even get to charge in, many of the Italians are already running. The Romans cannot handle being outflanked by our savage Iberians, and they're going to be very effective on the left hand side. Meanwhile, on the right, we have many of our javelins being thrown into the back of the Romans over here. We also have some Iberians starting to do some outflanking, although it's not as effective as it was on our left hand flank. But these javelins are going to be lethal, getting a lot of kills by stabbing the Romans in the rear. You can see our Iberians on the left hand flank are doing pretty well. They have basically completely enveloped them on the left hand side. Meanwhile, back towards our right, some of our hoplite units are getting caught out of position, being a little bit awkward with their positioning. However, they are still doing very, very well in terms of killing and basically winning the battle. They're doing what they need to do, they're just in a bit of an awkward position. Our Iberians are also over here doing excellent, although they are dying to the Romans. The Iberians will not do anywhere near as well as our hoplites will in terms of like a kill-death ratio. So while they will kill a lot of Romans, they don't have the discipline that the hoplites of Greece and Carthage do. And so with those... But regardless, with those outflanking maneuvers, the Roman legion ends up routing en masse shortly after, and now Numidians, alongside Xanthippus himself, will chase down the Romans and wipe out the 10th Legion almost entirely. We have a decisive victory at the statistics screen. If you like, you could take a look and see who got what kills, but you can see though, the few units that we did take a lot of losses with were our Iberian units and our Numidian. We need to be a little bit more careful with our Numidians, although it's kind of hard to have them skirmish for the entire battle while I'm trying to micro the rest of the army. So perhaps we could look into getting some more heavily armored Greek cav now that we have a strong position here in Greece. Decisive victory, as I just said. We're going to continue our policy of ransoming the Romans. We still want to get peace with them if possible, and it just gives us the most money that we can get, and we're not really too interested in slaves right now. So we're going to continue ransoming the Romans, sending them back in shame to their countrymen. If anything, perhaps it'll be more demoralizing for them to see so many of their men sent home after being defeated by our troops. Xanthippus continues leading the charge into Greece, so this time he'll be attacking the remnants of the 10th Legion alongside the newly assigned general. Because that general is so close to Athens, the Athenian garrison sallies out and actually gets caught and surrounded and obliterated by Xanthippus' forces. We did fight this battle manually, although it's not really worth showing you guys. It was basically a repeat of the battle you just saw, where we outflanked the enemy very quickly on similar styles of terrain. Xanthippus continues his assault, ends up taking on the city of Athens with essentially no losses. The garrison is killed. They actually did fight to the last man, so very commendable, but they managed to kill 4 of our men, who will now be the martyrs of Athens, as Athens is now, I would say once again, but it definitely has not ever been under Carthaginian control, but it is under Carthaginian control now. The liberation of Greece continues. And to aid in the liberation of Greece, the Magonids are going to send the Second Republican Fleet towards Athens to help deal with an Illyrian massive fleet that's just floating off the coast over here. The Illyrians haven't been too aggressive towards us, but we do know they have a lot of very large navies, and they're quite powerful. On a one-to-one basis, they're not as strong as us, but they are very much a threat. And so the second fleet will be sent over there. The Magonids are interested in Greece to an extent, so perhaps if they can do well over here with their fleet, they might even send over more forces to try and consolidate their position. No family of Carthage really has ownership over Greece. It's kind of all just been left to Xanthippus, but if he ends up dying or leaving, who knows what will happen. Doesn't seem like he's gonna die anytime soon though, as here he is killing a Spartan rebellion who rose up against his rule over the area. You'll also notice Xanthippus has recruited a lot of new units to his army in the last few turns that have occurred, namely a massive Spartan contingent of over 5 units or 5 cohorts worth of Spartan elite warriors. Going to be very, very interesting to see how they handle fighting under the leadership of Xanthippus, their exiled general. The second fleet arrives in Athens, gets some supplies, and then immediately marches towards the Illyrian navy. The Illyrians try to sail away, however, they get stuck in a storm and get caught on the northern shores of Crete, where they can't escape our fleet. So the second fleet here will end up charging them down, getting them, and this will be the first battle for Baitos Magonid, one of the youngest generals, but one with the most to prove. Let's go ahead and see if Baitos can live up to the Magonid family name. Here we are on the battlefield. It's going to be a pretty quick battle, as all naval battles are, really. You'd be hard-pressed to find a battle that isn't less than 10 minutes for this, which is actually very, very quick in DEI battle time limits. But you can also see that we have our navy in a specific formation, and it's a pretty typical one that I like to do when I'm fighting naval battles manually. And that is where we have our melee troops in the front, especially our large ships. They're already set to ram the enemy. Second line is skirmishers and small supporting ships. And then in the rear, we have our admiral's flagship. We also have 2 ships on either side, which are skirmisher ships. They have Balearic slingers on board. They're going to act basically as a personal guard to protect our admiral. You can see there are a lot of elite marines on the admiral's flagship. They're definitely ready to protect him and perhaps engage in melee combat with the enemy if needed. The battle begins with the enemy also sending forward their melee ships against us. However, they had to intermingle some archers as they didn't have enough melee troops available for their entire front line to match ours. Here come our massive ships alongside some of our smaller ships that will be helping out. And so you're going to see some ships get immediately annihilated in the first head-on collision. We wipe out almost a dozen ships in the first engagement here, where we even had little double whammies coming in from 2 of our smaller ships taking on the enemy ship, which is of a similar size. And then our officers lead the larger ships in an immediate push against the second line of Illyrians coming right at them. Basically, we wiped out the entire half of the Illyrian army on the first charge. The second charge wiped out another quarter, and here we are seeing the last final section of the Illyrian army rout en masse. And while they still have 4 ships that are going to try and escape, they won't escape. We will either burn them alive until their ships sink, or we'll ram the last remaining remnants of the Illyrian navy. Baitos gets his first victory. There's a brief look at the stats if you want to have a look, but it's not really worth seeing, to be honest. Naval battles are pretty straightforward at the moment, at least. Perhaps if we end up fighting the Greeks or someone else with some massive ships, I don't know, like maybe the Romans, will get a bit more interesting. But I still felt like you guys would like to see a little bit of naval action in this video. We're going to continue moving forward though. Things are heating up in Greece. Baitos will be in the area. He needs to resupply again very soon. And we also have more Illyrian fleets nearby, and I'm basically keeping him around so he could try to help protect Athens itself. And so perhaps if he exerts this Magonid authority early on in Greece, the Magonids will end up sending generals to Greece, especially after Xanthippus is no longer required, or perhaps if he ends up betraying Carthage, who knows what will happen with that. The Romans now only have Apollonia and Larissa under their direct control. Pella has been taken over by the Illyrians, so we'll have to end up liberating that from them. There isn't any other Roman armies in the area that we can see, although there is a major Illyrian one on the coast. So Xanthippus will lead the army against the massive garrison here at Larissa. He'll end up sieging the city, not assaulting it immediately, though. But the Romans seem to have very large garrisons in all of their towns, so every single town that we're taking, we have to pay for pretty dearly. And speaking of paying dearly, here is the Illyrian army. They have a majority of spears and hoplites in their main line, which is fair enough. We should be able to handle that. However, they do have elite seeker bearers, which are very aggressive, good armor-piercing damage, and overall a good counter to our more solid hoplites. So that may be difficult. Meanwhile, though, in the west, in Iberia, things are also going to start heating up here with the declaration of war coming in very soon from Hamilcar. Hamilcar is trying to figure out how the Barcids can end up doing some serious damage in Iberia and hopefully maintaining a permanent stranglehold. And you saw there at the diplomacy screen, there is a lot of infighting occurring with the Iberians. However, the Vitonis tribe that we're going to be attacking here are allied with the Lusitani, so we do need to be aware that there are some minor alliances occurring. However, we have sent an official declaration of war instead of just attacking them, because Hamilcar now has his army in ambush outside our capital city that is inside of Iberia. So, we're hoping that the Vitonis will fall for the bait that Hamilcar has, for whatever reason, left Iberia with his army, and perhaps they will end up marching towards Mastia and get ambushed on the way, thus giving Hamilcar an open door into Iberia. And they do just that, ladies and gentlemen. Hamilcar leads his Italian veterans and Samnites against the apparently casual and amateurish Iberians who get caught completely off guard. Here we are in the ambush. We have a very large hill advantage right here with our Iberian slingers way up the top. You can see the enemy formation marching down below. You can also see some of our other units off in the distance. With the sun up behind us as well, the enemy troops will have a hard time looking up to see what we're doing and where we're coming from without having the sun pierce their eyes and make it very difficult for them to operate overall. They are in a long column formation here, but they're not in really any battle formation. All of their skirmishers are at the rear, and all of their other groups of troops are separated as well. We're going to begin the battle by sending forward all of our skirmishers to target the enemy general. We'll also have our Brutian infantry up here on the hill, focus on charging down and trying to clump up the enemy as quickly as they can. Also has some fireballs there in case you didn't see them. Then further down the line, though, we have more Italian mercenaries. These guys are more just southern Italians, and not Brutians though specifically. And then on the far right hand side over here, we have a large Iberian contingent that will end up charging in and hopefully pinning even more Iberian troops. Now, the Iberians we're paying definitely don't have any problem fighting their fellow Iberians, though, as basically all of the Iberian nations have had infighting for the last 100 or so turns, if not longer. In the far rear, we have our cavalry detachments that will be focusing on the enemy slingers that they have. We also have a brand new unit here, which is Iberian Editani heavy cavalry. So these guys are going to be very important throughout the battle, and perhaps later on in the campaign if they survive. Perhaps they'll be as important as our Samnite cavalry right here. The Samnites have followed us very far away from Italy, but they're very dedicated and they're very, very good at what they do. One of the best AOR units we get access to. So hopefully they do well. The battle begins with the fireballs sent down from above. The sun spits them out towards the Iberians. They have absolutely no time to react. They barely look up before the general and the majority of his personal bodyguard are obliterated in fire and slinger fire as well, and javelins are coming raining down from the Brutians. Despite them being just swordsmen, they do carry a javelin with them in the typical Roman style now of warfare, and the rest of the Carthaginian army charges downhill as the Iberians try to charge uphill against us to try and blunt the charge against them. Overall, it's going very well for the Carthaginians. Our men are starting to outflank them immediately up here on the hill on the far left-hand side of our formation. And we also have Hamilcar himself leading his personal bodyguard down to try and pin down any Iberians that try to retreat or try to outmaneuver against the enemy forces. Meanwhile, at the rear of the enemy column, the enemy slingers break immediately and they are getting wiped out by the hundreds. While there will be some of them that escape, they will only do so because they're already at the edge of the battlefield. Meanwhile, back towards the center of the column, we've divided the enemy army into two halves. And so what we're going to do is have Hamilcar with his cavalry recharge one half. That's already wavering and should end up retreating momentarily. Followed by our elephants attacking the second half of the army. While these guys are a little bit more brutal and disciplined, with this recharge of elephants, there's absolutely no way they can handle that massive morale penalty. Their general is already dead. He died in the first volley of the fireballs, and now our Iberians are charging downhill alongside our Italians as well. And so combining those two troops alongside our elephants, too much for the Iberians, and they end up routing en masse. The Vatones tribe suffers a massive defeat immediately into the first beginnings of the Second Punic War in Iberia. We have a decisive victory, and as you can see, all of our troops did fantastic. Even though our elephants didn't get a lot of kills, they routed a lot of troops, and before they could charge them down, the enemy tried to run off the field. Some of the enemy slingers managed to escape the battlefield, but overall the rest of their army was wiped out, and our war against the Vatones starts out very well. However, the Lusitani respond by taking the city of Cartuba from the Turdetani. The Lusitani, while they aren't the most powerful faction in all of Iberia, they have very good warriors and they have two large armies around Cartuba. So we're going to have to try and recruit a Barca young tier general and station him in Gadir, try and give him some mercenaries to hold off the city from the Lusitani counterattack that's surely coming. In addition, from the east, Hamilcar will begin marching his army towards the city. While he doesn't really have a city fit for taking a city, he doesn't have an army fit for taking a city. He has to at least try, because he has to make something happen. Otherwise, the Lusitani will come in and cause some serious damage if they're left underestimated. However, ladies and gentlemen, that is where we're going to leave it for today. So thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.